Are you tired of pointless meetings? Then watch this explainer video and learn about task process in groups by Edgar Schein. But first, let's get to know Edgar Schein. Edgar Henry Schein was born on March 5, 1928. A former professor at the MIT Sloan School of Management, Schein has made a notable mark on the field of organizational development in many areas, including career development, group process consultation, and organizational culture. He is the son of former University of Chicago professor Marcel Schein. He holds a PhD in social psychology. And currently, he is the Society of Sloan Fellows Professor of Management Emeritus and Professor Emeritus at the MIT Sloan School of Management. Now, let us imagine ourselves individually as a consultant, facilitator, or a manager who wants to have a meeting that is as effective as possible. What should we be paying attention to and what kind of interventions should we be considering? This table presents a set of general categories of observable events that the manager could consider as possible foci of attention. The three items on top of the table are the fundamental issues any group should have to deal with. 1. Managing their boundaries. 2. Fulfilling their function or primary task. And 3. Managing their interpersonal and group management. Meanwhile, how a group functions in each of the issues can be observed in 3 levels, as shown along the side of the table. The content, which is what the group works on. The kinds of processes the group uses to conduct its affairs. And the structures that are in place in the sense of stable recurring ways of operating. For this explainer video, we will focus on the middle column, the group task accomplishment. Let us move forward to the details on how will a group function in accomplishing its tasks in the levels of content, process, and structure. One level is task content. The most observable aspect of task content is the actual subject matter that the group talks about or works on. This subject matter is the reason why the group is there in the meeting or conversation, and this is typically labeled as agenda. The role of the consultant is to keep close tabs on the task content to make sure that it stays on track. Another level in observing how will a group function in accomplishing its task is the process level. For this, we have the task process. This is the part wherein the group gets the task done effectively. Schein articulated 2 possible models that can be used to accomplish a task. 1. Task functions necessary to be fulfilled. And 2. Group problem solving and decision making. For a group to move forward on its primary task, a certain number of task functions must be fulfilled. Initiating, information seeking, information giving, opinion seeking, opinion giving, clarifying, elaborating, summarizing, consensus testing. Some initiating must be carried out for the group to make progress on a task. Someone must state the goal or problem, make proposals as to how to work on it, and set some time limits or targets. Often this function falls to the leader or to whoever called the group together in the first place, but as a group grows and gains confidence, initiating functions will increasingly come from a broader range of members. There must be some opinion seeking and giving and information seeking and giving on various issues related to the task for the group to make progress. It is important to distinguish seeking from giving and information from opinion, in order to avoid the fruitless debate instead of constructive dialogue. The consultant can help by asking what kinds of information might be needed to resolve the issue. There must be some clarifying and elaborating points in order to test the adequacy of communication, and in order to build on the ideas of others toward more creative and complex ideas. Summarizing is a function that should also be carried out to ensure that ideas are not lost because of either the size of the group or the length of discussion time. Effective summarizing includes a review of which points the group has already covered and the different ideas that have been stated, so that as decision points are reached, the group is operating with full information. The group has to do periodical consensus testing to test whether it is nearing a decision or should continue to discuss. Could involve simply asking the question, "Are we ready to decide?" Or could involve some summarizing. It seems to me we have expressed these three alternatives and are leaning toward number 2, am I right? Meanwhile, the problem-solving and decision-making model distinguishes two basic cycles of activity. One that occurs prior to any decision or action, and one that occurs after a decision to act has been taken. The first cycle is the part wherein the group decides what to do and consists of 3 stages. 1. Problem formulation. 2. Generating proposals for action. 3. Forecasting consequences of proposed solutions, or testing proposed solutions, and evaluating them conceptually before committing to overt action. This cycle ends when the group has made a formal decision on what to do. Making the decision is not explicitly shown in the diagram as a step, but it is represented by the act of crossing the boundary between cycle 1 and cycle 2. The second cycle involves the function of the group. 4. To plan a detailed course of action. 5. To take action steps. And 6. To evaluate the outcomes of the action steps, often leading back to the first cycle with problem redefinition. Problem formulation is the most difficult step by far in problem solving. The difficulty arises in part because of a confusion between symptoms and the problem. None of the things observed in certain situations are really the problem to be worked on. Rather, they are the symptoms to be removed. Before one can begin to solve the problem, they must identify the causes of the symptoms, and this is often difficult because it may require further diagnosis. The essential process is to have enough concrete incidents to be able to generalize a sense of the problem from them, and then to seek the patterns that tie them together. This process can be done in the following steps. 1. Feelings of frustrations and tensions. 2. Identification of specific incidents which arouse feelings. 3. Analysis of incidents. 4. Generalization from incidents concerning the nature of the problem. And 5. Problem formulation. Once the problem has been adequately formulated, the group can move on to producing ideas or courses of action that might resolve the problem or improve the situation. At this stage, the most likely pitfall is that proposals are evaluated one at a time, and that the group lapses into debate instead of developing a dialogue format. The group should be encouraged to start this stage with some version of brainstorming, producing a number of ideas, and keeping them all in front of the group. Brainstorming should be built on the rule that no evaluation of ideas should be permitted during the idea production phase to stimulate the creativity that is needed at this point. And ideas should be separated from their proposers, so that they can be viewed objectively. Once the group has a list of ideas, it can quickly weed out the obviously unworkable ones and explore the 2 or 3 ideas that look like they might work. Once a number of ideas for a solution have been proposed, it is necessary to forecast the consequences of adopting a particular solution and evaluate those consequences. The criteria for evaluating might include: 1. Personal experience. 2. Expert opinion. 3. Surveying of existing data or information. Or 4. Plan tests or research. Personal experience and expert opinion are the easiest to fall back on, but often the least valid. Surveys, focus groups, interviews, and other more formal research processes are likely to be more valid, but also more time-consuming and expensive. Ultimately, the group has to agree on the methods of evaluating the proposals. Before the group moves on to cycle 2, it has to end cycle 1 by making a decision. The group can commit itself to trying out a proposal for action, or decides to gather more information before deciding one particular proposal for solution. Here, it should be noted that there are many available decision-making mechanisms. 1. Decision by lack of response. The most common and perhaps least visible group decision-making method occurs when someone suggests an idea, and before anyone else can say anything about it, someone else suggests another idea, until the group eventually finds one it will act on. All the ideas that have been bypassed, in a real sense, have been decided on by the group. But the decision has been simply a common decision not to support them, making the proposers feel that their suggestions have plopped. The floors of most group meeting rooms are completely covered with plops. 2. Decision by formal authority. The group can generate ideas and hold free discussion. But at any time, the chair say that he has heard the discussion, and he is ready to make a decision. 3. Decision by self-authorization or minority. The tacit assumption in this case is that silence means consent. 1, 2, or 3 people employing tactics that produce action and therefore must be considered decisions, but which are taken without the consent of the majority. One version of minority rule is self-authorization. Self-authorization is where one member makes a proposal for what to do and everyone else had remained silent, no other proposals are offered, no one says anything negative, and so the group does what was proposed. The initiator and everyone else assumed that silence meant consent. When a self-authorized proposal is on the table, it is often important for the consultant to say, does the group agree with this? Is this what we want to do? 4. Decision by majority rule, voting and/or polling. One simple version of this method is to poll everyone's opinion following some period of discussion, and if a majority feels the same way, then that is the decision. Other version is the more formal one of making a motion, getting a second, or simply stating a clear alternative and asking for votes in favor of it, votes against it, and abstentions. 5. Decision by consensus. Consensus, here, is not the same thing as unanimity. Consensus is a state of affairs where communications have been sufficiently open, and the group climate has been sufficiently supportive, to make all members of the group feel that they had a fair chance to influence the decision. It is operationally defined by the fact that those members, who do not agree with the extended majority alternative, nevertheless understand it clearly and are prepared to support it. 6. Decision by unanimous consent. It's decision method where everyone truly agrees on the course of action to be taken. Although it's ideal to get 100% of the group to agree, it is difficult to get unanimous consent every time. As the group reaches some consensus on a proposed solution, we can now go to cycle 2. The action cycle. When a decision has been made on a given proposal or idea, the problem-solving process is far from finished. The group must still plan a detailed course of action, take action steps, and formulate a method to determine whether the action steps solve the problem. At any of these stages, it is again possible for the group to discover that it had not formulated the problem correctly, and must revert back to cycle 1 for some new reformulation, idea proposing and testing. But don't get disappointed. It is better to go back to problem formulation rather than costly implementing a wrong solution. Steps 4 and 5 involve action planning and taking action steps. The action planning stage can be treated as a new problem, requiring its own problem formulation, idea production, and idea testing. It is reminded that these substages should not be short-circuited or avoided. Otherwise, the group may assume that the proposal is insufficient instead of an inadequate action planning. One of the major pitfalls in these steps involves not clearly allocating the responsibility for action. General plans are sometimes made without clearly assigning responsibilities to specific members with specific actions, thereby achieving nothing because everyone thought someone else was doing the job. The clear allocation of responsibility for action ensures that the action will be taken and provides a test of the decision, since the implementer can still raise questions about the planned action. Another pitfall is the delegation of cycle 2 to another group or engaging a consulting or task force group to handle cycle 1. When different people perform either cycle 1 or cycle 2, they may not understand the problem or commit to a particular solution. The ideal scenario is to achieve a high degree of overlap, meaning the same problem-solving unit handles both cycles. However, if this is not possible, adequate opportunities should be provided for both groups to participate in each cycle. Step 6 is evaluation of the outcome. To ensure adequate evaluation, the group should reach a consensus on 1. The criteria for evaluation. 2. The timetable when results should first be expected. And 3. Who will be responsible for reporting back information to be evaluated? Once results are in, the group should psychologically prepare to go back into cycle 1 with an effort to reformulate the problem, not merely to rush in more solution alternatives. The group should always be prepared to reconsider what it sees as the problem, and the consultant should constantly raise the question, what problems are we working on? It is easy for the consultant to get the group to observe and manage task processes, as discussed earlier. However, consultants are often faced with a dilemma on where to focus their intervention. When do they intervene? Which behavior to bring to the group's attention? There are 3 key criteria given for choosing from the array of possibilities as follows. The degree to which the consultant perceives the process issue to be related to the group's effectiveness. The degree to which the data about the process issue are sufficiently clear so that if attention is drawn to the issue, there is a reasonable probability that the group members will also have perceived what the consultant perceived. Whether or not the consultant can think of an intervention that will facilitate moving the process along instead of simply interrupting it. Obscure references to process issues that are not visible will not enhance group learning, nor is it helpful to get a group preoccupied with how it is working when there is time pressure to make an important decision. The consultant must understand what the group views as its primary task and focus interventions on those task processes that relate clearly to that primary task. The task structures of the group are relatively stable, recurring processes that help the group or organization accomplish its tasks. Examples of task structures are formal hierarchy, the defined chain of command or information and control systems. Technically, these are the recurring processes that we teach our new hires when they join the company. It is composed of regularities that pertain specifically to the group's survival in its external environment. All groups face at least 5 basic survival problems. 1. Mission/primary task. 2. Specific goals and strategies. 3. Means to use to accomplish the goals. 4. Measuring and monitoring systems. 5. Systems for fixing problems and getting back on course. By being aware of them, the consultants can focus their observations and create a mental checklist of what to pay attention to. Schein's task process in groups taught us that an effective meeting brings a thoughtfully selected group of people together for a specific purpose, provides a forum for open discussion, and delivers a tangible result. Meetings shouldn't be where productivity goes to die. If you're doing meetings right, they are where real work gets done. This explainer video will help you plan even better for your next meeting. Keep an ongoing, open dialogue amongst the people you meet with most frequently, and emphasize progress over perfection. Let us promote continuous improvement for the win.